Hey, welcome back. So today I'm going to talk about my experience so far with the Hobonichi Weeks. I did an unboxing video of sorts, about a month ago now, in prep for using it. And now that I've had a chance to actually get in and use different pens and inks on the paper, I'm pretty disappointed in the performance. The paper seems to be extra thin this year compared to some of the ones in the past, and it's feathering and the ink is bleeding through. So let's take a look at what I've been talking about. Okay, and here we have the weeks. So this is, some of the first writing I did in it, and with pens I had inked, and this was shown, I believe, in my initial preview video. But as you can see, the bleed through is really bad on this paper. From what I've gathered from reading different forums and talking to other pen people, this is now a 43 GSM Tomoe paper instead of the 52 it was before. And, the Hobonichi has replaced the 5-year journals because of so many complaints about the paper, but people who've reached out asking about this paper are told this is just kind of how it's meant to be, and that's really disappointing because for something like this where you need to be able to use both sides of the paper without terrible bleed through, that kind of goes against what a planner is for. So I've had to switch to using lighter color inks, but even those, if you can, I don't know how well it's coming through, but you can see it shows through even this, the Pilot 92 with the Sailor Tea Time, that kind of orangish ink. And if you write anything like this is the new Iroshizuku Rika ink, it's showing through. So it's been pretty disappointing. This is some, writing I did for next week. And that's with the Ultra Extra Fine. And even it is showing through somewhat. Now, you really see when you get back into when I did my extra fine nib video and wrote in here, I really saw the bleed through and how bad it truly is. I was at the pen club yesterday, and these are a couple of broader or stub nibs I was just trying out of people's pens, and seeing the show through, so I don't see how anybody using any kind of nib really larger than an extra fine would be able to use this on a consistent basis unless they're not using fountain pens. And I'll put a comparison up from my other video just to show the same writing clip that I did on the different papers like the Nemesine, the regular 68 Tomoe and a Lockbee insert and whatnot. The spread out of the inks on this paper is pretty close to unusable. This is the new Toro ink with the Kaweco piston, and it doesn't show through, but that's only really because the ink is an extremely light color. If I didn't have Toro in that pen, I'm very convinced that it would be showing through. The finest nib I have, the Platinum 3776 Ultra Extra Fine, you can see it showing through here. So this really makes it a single side of the paper use, which for this back part is not the end of the world, but that takes your, 72 pages, 73 pages, and really cuts it in half. Because if there's anything you need to see both sides, you're going to see such terrible bleed through. So I'm not going to ditch it. I'm going to try and find a way to make it work using the lighter inks and the only certain pens for this year. But I think this might be a one and done trial for the Hobonichi system for me, at least for the weeks. My main Rhodia is what I'm going to go to. It's the A5, and let me grab that and put it in here, and I'll show the comparison. Okay, so here's a Rhodia pad. This is my one for 2025. This is the week of Christmas in here, so I didn't have anything written. So I'm not gonna do all the same pins in the other, but just a comparison of, a couple of the nibs that I use on a regular basis. So that's the Yowo. I mean, number 6, that's what I have in my Opus 88s. Here's my Lamy 2000. And immediately the difference is easily seen of, you know, the spread on that other paper really should be nowhere near that what it is. So, you know, it's disappointing, but you're not gonna know unless you try. And, you know, I think I've learned my lesson, but at least, you know, seeing other people talk about their experience of the Hobonichi, at least I didn't just get one that was an outlier. It seems to be a common theme around the pen community as people are getting their 2025 planners into the rotation. So, you know, that is just a couple of the nibs there to show the difference in how the spread of the ink is. And let's see, this is the Pilot 92 and a fine. So I'll zoom in and I'll bring that closer. You know, that's just easier to do after the fact, and show the difference in those, you know, as close as I can with a side-by-side, to show the difference in that ink spread. And it'll really be apparent that, you know, this paper, while I like the form factor, I like this pre-loved Galen cover that I was able to get for this. I like carrying it. I just don't like the performance of the paper. So, like I said, I'm going to make do for this year, using these for different purposes. This is stays on my desk where it's more work stuff, and you know, I don't carry it around as often. And then this was intended to be the calendar I carry around, because I have a Google Calendar that I share with my wife, but I like writing stuff down. It's just easier to look at and reference and plan things out. Or if you need to have a note, these empty pages in the back, if you already have this with you from a calendar standpoint, you know, it's a nice way to jot things down. But, you know, you live, you learn. So I'm going to try and make the best of it. But what are your experiences that you're having with the Hobonichi? Is this your first year as well? Leave a comment and let me know what your experiences are so far, and if you're seeing the same thing in your 2025 weeks or any of the other Hobonichi 2025 planners, if you're seeing a similar experience. Okay, so that wraps up my experience so far with the 2025 Hobonichi Weeks. You know, it's not exactly what I had expected from all the reading and talking to people on the internet over the years, but I think this year their paper with their different formulation and trying to make it thinner has kind of backfired. So we'll see how they respond for 2026, and I'll probably let someone else be the guinea pig before I commit to trying this again one more year in 2026. Maybe I'll skip a year and try a different system next year for a pocket kind of carry calendar and see where it goes from there. Are you having issues with this kind of paper as well? Leave a comment below and let me know. I would really love to hear from users who have this same Hobonichi Weeks for 2025, but who write with, you know, medium or broad or larger nibs, and, you know, is it usable at all for you? I think I'll be able to make do because of the extra fine nibs and just being smart with ink choices and, you know, what I decide to write in here and how I decide to utilize front and back of pages. But, you know, I'd really love to see how others are going to deal with that as well. If you're new, consider subscribing so that way you can see new videos as they're released, and if there's any more follow-up videos related to the Hobonichi later on in the year, you'd be able to see those as well. Thanks for watching.